What's up, good people? Welcome to probably the most embarrassing performance under this Jim Harbaugh era to date. Go on the road, lose 35-6. It felt like the Chargers were so waiting for that bye week that they absolutely laid an egg here. I don't even, that feels like it, I'm putting it lightly, but either way, bad loss today in Jacksonville, 35-6, a team that was trending in the wrong direction in the Jaguars, a team that was trending in the right direction, the Chargers. They fall to 7-4. Jags are 6-4 now. They're all kind of now even in the playoff race as they head into the bye. And Broncos and Chiefs will decide how the division, is going to shape out for the rest of the weekend. But because we're ignoring the Raiders. But man, what an overall from top to bottom terrible performance from this team.
I don't know very many teams that can all you 2 weeks in a row, but in the polar opposite ways like the Chargers can, because in no way did I expect them to dominate the Steelers so thoroughly last week. I thought Herbert would be running for his life, and I mean, they still got after him, but they did a pretty decent job. The defense came through and completely wrecked the Steelers. And then you fly cross country, and then you go to Jacksonville, where I expected, I know some people were thinking about, blowing them out, but that's not my mindset with this current team, the way it's constructed right now. I just figured they'd figure out a way to pull it out. But nah, man, invasion of the body snatchers. I don't know what team showed up there today, what coaching staff did, but nobody got off of that plane ready to play a down of football. And that's from the beginning until the end of that game. And you get completely curb stomped by a team that was definitely more desperate than you were, but it's not necessarily about them playing with desperation. They out physicaled you, which was probably the most discouraging thing about that showing today. I did not suspect that they would go in there and have a team just so thoroughly dominate them in the way that they did, when there's no indication has been given something like that would happen again post that Colts game. But that's also wholly different Colts team. Essentially the same thing took place again today, except you couldn't get anything going offensively at all at any point. And it's every single person who touched the field. So, yeah, man, ultimately, like you mentioned, super embarrassing. And now we got to stew on this for 2 whole weeks.
Yeah, it's terrible, man, especially because we got off the podcast last week going man, this one feels – we were a lot less scared for this game than we were the Steelers game. And when they put it to the Steelers like they did. And then the Jaguars coming off, 3 straight games where the defense has given up over 30 points. The Raiders scored 30 on them. The Davis Mills led Texans put 36 on them, and then went ham in the fourth quarter to come back and win that game. And to only put up 6 points, you had 2 total yards in that third quarter, 0 first downs, and you had to pull Herbert 11 minutes into the fourth quarter. I mean, it just doesn't get worse than that. And I know that beatdown from the Raiders, the score was a lot different, but this feels a lot worse because there were no real excuses here. They just, at least with that Raiders beatdown a couple of years ago, it was a different coaching staff. It was Easton Stick. It was a roster full of kind of misfit kids that were going to get let go anyway. It was kind of like the end of an era as it was, so that didn't really feel so bad, and also it helped the Chargers draft stock, which was nice at the moment. But this, I mean, guys were starting to get healthy again. The offensive line was starting to roll a little bit better, I guess, in some aspects. And then you thought Trevor Penning was going to give you some kind of hope, but I mean, Penning somehow made the offensive line worse today than it already was, and I didn't think that was possible. But when Deculus came in, and I don't know if Penning was hurt or whatever, but when Deculus came in, that was the cleanest pocket of the day. And somehow Herbert sailed the ball 10 feet over Ladd McConkey's head, where he's wide open on that deep crosser. So I don't know, man. It's not like Alt and Slater are coming back anytime soon. I don't even know if they're coming back this season. Definitely not Alt. Slater's out of a boot, which is good news. But man, I don't know if it's they can't, once they get to Florida, they just can't, is it the humidity? Is it the clubs? I don't know what it is, but something about Jacksonville, they are cursed when crossed against Duval for some reason.
Tell you what, Liam Cohen might be Jesse Mentor's daddy at this point. From last year, we saw the complete, crap kicking when he was Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive coordinator, and then again this year, it seems to follow. Nobody gets a pass for this game at all. I mean, when
Even
you sit
Herbert,
here and
by the way.
exactly, absolutely not. I mean, Justin, look, man, I get it. You're under siege. What was it? More than half of his dropbacks, which is a weekly occurrence, is to be expected at this point. But 81 yards passing. I want to give the Jaguars credit, because this isn't all about the Chargers just sucking. This is about a team who came out there who was like the worst in the league in sacks, by the way. They walked away with 3 today, but it felt like they had a ton more. They were able to defend the Chargers up front with just 4, and then they dropped 7 in coverage. And so there was absolutely nothing open downfield. But here's my question, Greg Roman. Why are you still trying to set up balls downfield? Why is it that last week, in a game plan that worked so well, did you come out and do the polar opposite of that against a team that I guess he was thinking in his head, oh, well, they haven't gotten after anybody all year long, so we don't necessarily have to set up to try to move the ball the same way as we did against the Steelers. No, dummy. Here's the problem. They still have very athletic guys on the edge, and you have nothing with regard to protection for Herbert. So it doesn't matter that they're having an off year. You are their get-right game, and you let them have exactly what they wanted. You're asking Herbert to do the 5 and 7 step drop thing again. I will say I do fault Herbert for the fact that he is not speeding up his internal clock. He's waiting for these longer, slower developing routes to open up downfield. And if these guys are being defended and those windows aren't opening up, then you got to get out of there, or you got to get rid of the ball. What you cannot do is hold that ball beyond 3 seconds, because, hell, you're not even getting to 3 seconds. It's maybe 2. And then at that point, 1, 2, if that first read isn't there and that second one isn't there immediately after, take off. You just got to get going. And he didn't do that today. He took off running a few times. He was, again, the leading rusher in the game. And again, this is a guy who has 21 yards rushing and 81 passing. The next leading rusher is Kamani Vidal, which, here we go again. Good game, bad game. Good game, bad game. It's how it works. But then he got hurt, which was my fear. Luckily, you play with fate and you got to basically the bye week without it actually coming back to bite you in the butt. But I was always concerned that he was going to get injured and you'd be left with absolutely nothing, which is why I didn't understand why they didn't trade something late, maybe a late round pick next year, to get somebody to at least come in and, spare him a little bit. Come in and take some carries off of him. Maybe somebody who provides a little bit more explosiveness, even a bigger back that can maybe get 2 or 3 yards after contact. And they just didn't do it. And I guess they just got comfortable with the fact that he was performing, quote unquote, well, even though, it was kind of consistently inconsistent. But I guess every other week is like some semblance of consistency. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I understand the thought process there. But I will say that they put themselves in a situation that was absolutely worst case scenario. You couldn't run the ball, and then you found yourself down by a couple scores, and you had to depend on the passing game. But even in that passing game, you weren't utilizing any quick game whatsoever. Quentin Johnston had how many receptions today?
I don't think any.
Yes. The one go ball that he got, which he absolutely should have caught near the end of the game.
Yeah.
Forget it. It's garbage time, but there's no way in hell you should drop that pass.
Yeah.
But that's not his thing. I get it, but there's still no excuse for that. That's probably one of the easier contested balls you're ever going to have in that situation. And for some reason, Trey Harris, the guy who did this in college, cannot get a single one of these. He did get like the first reception of the game to start off, but after that, he disappears as well. But you're going to throw a go ball late to the guy who doesn't do that, and then the shortest wide receiver on the team following after that. I don't understand, but forget it. I'm tired of trying to understand Greg Roman's logic here. What I do know is this team is in trouble. You're going into your bye week. I'm not sure what you're going to figure out, because your offensive line is your offensive line. What you're going to have to do is come up with a combination of those guys that you can stick with for the remainder of the season. So there's some level of continuity. And then maybe whoever that body double that took Greg Roman's place last week, they can get him to come back and somebody can kidnap this version of him and lock him up somewhere for the rest of the season. Because this dude is going to cost you playoff opportunities. And I'm ranting on, so I'm going to stop. But again, I've never been more embarrassed. Well, no, let me not say that. I'm sure if I think hard, I can think of another embarrassing Chargers performance. There are multiple to pull from, but this one has to be in the top 5 to 7, just based on what they did last week and the team that it happened against.
Definitely the most embarrassing of Harbaugh's tenure, for sure.
For sure.
And you know, the offensive line, they're going to have to figure that out. I don't know what they can. There's nothing they can really do. I think the hope is that maybe there's a world where Trevor Penning just wasn't ready, and that's why he didn't play last week. And you know, they kind of threw him in late this week. Deculus was, you know, at left tackle for half the week this week, and then, you know, he ends up Penning ends up starting on Sunday. But you think maybe with 2 weeks' time he gets more comfortable in the offense, and or Deculus, because I don't know that it's possible for Deculus because he's been there all year. But I hopefully maybe there's a world where Trevor Penning just wasn't ready. He was on an island, so I don't know how he fixed that. But regardless, there was nothing good about today, and it felt like the offense, that everybody was bad. But just speaking on offense specifically, it just felt like Greg Roman was out of sync from the jump. Like there was a early penalty with that grounding, and then they just did two quick passes, and then, you know, it was third and long, and they couldn't manage it. And then, you know, the pass rush was getting to Herbert. Herbert couldn't sense pressure, felt pressure when it was there, or when it wasn't there. So like he was all over the place. And then there were these ill-timed screens that weren't working for anybody. And then there was this one play where they tried to run a quad bunch on one side and then hit QJ on the other, one-on-one. And it, like, they're already down and they're trying to get cute with QJ. I mean, that ball got batted down, but like with the way the run game was not working, which it did not. And I know Herbert was the leading rusher, but I don't think he had more than like 3 or 4 rushes today in general. So even like getting twice as many carries for Vidal and everybody else, they couldn't get it going on the ground. And luckily Kamani came back in, but the passing game has got to get itself going. And there was a lot of quick timed passes that helped negate the rush when we were talking about it. Like at the beginning of that second quarter last week, it felt like the Steelers were getting after him in the first quarter, and then they started to get some quick passes. There was some like really, really nice timed quick posts and screens and in-breaking routes that really helped negate the pass rush and got the ball out of Herbert's hands fast. And then for whatever reason, that all went out the window today because maybe they didn't really think Jacksonville was all that hot. But then once you saw that Chargers got 2 turnovers on defense and they could only get field goals out of both tries, that this defense might need to take seriously at some point. It just didn't ever feel like they made that adjustment. And it felt like we gave Roman credit last week because he made those adjustments, but this week it just felt like there were drives where it felt like they just gave up. Like nobody even cared. It was 3rd and like 7 and they ran the ball anyway. It was just like, there was no accountability today. There was no fire. Nobody, like, it just felt like everybody was in a lull and kind of sleepwalking today. And that's what happens in the NFL with a team that clearly was a lot more hungry in the Jaguars, because after the beating they had last week, barely getting it across against the Raiders, they had to come back and win that game. The Raiders are terrible. Getting beat by Davis Mills and then giving up all those points in the fourth quarter. They were hungry and they came out and they played like it. And the Chargers absolutely just kind of laid down today. And that's why you get beat so bad, like 35-6, when you act like that in the NFL. It just can't happen. And there's nobody that can say they had a good day today, top to bottom. Though actually, now I think about it, J.K. Scott wasn't so bad today. He almost had 2 punts today that were down inside the 5, which would have been pretty good. But anyway,
tells you all you need to know about the day.
Yeah. Dicker made his kicks. But yeah, man, everything from all 3 phases were just terrible.
You want to know when I realized that there was no plan after whatever they walked into that stadium with today didn't work? There was no plan B. The point of starting Deculus over Sawyer last week, because remember, we were asking this question because we didn't think it made sense. But when I thought back about it, I'm like, okay, well, Deculus probably offers you a little bit more on the athleticism side. So if you want to get him out on the move, and we're talking about like run block, and especially if you're throwing these screen passes and you need somebody out in space to block, he's a better option than Sawyer is. But if you're just talking about pure dropbacks and pass sets, then Sawyer would be your best option. But Deculus was also the better option as a run blocker. And then Penning would be essentially a better version of Deculus. You're still not depending on him for the pass protection, but he is a better run blocker, a bigger body, and definitely, check your RAS scores, I guess, one of the most athletic tackles to come into the league in quite some time. But the problem here is that when you got down and then you realized that you had to pass the ball, why wasn't Sawyer plugged in? I mean, was he inactive? I don't remember seeing him as being an inactive. So why wouldn't you take them out and then plug Sawyer in at left tackle if you were going to then have to pass the ball, because he would give you the best option to do that, especially now since you're behind on time and you're probably going to need bigger plays, which means you're going to have to focus on getting the ball downfield more often, which means you need more time in protection to do that. And there was no adjustment. So we got Greg Roman again banging his head up against the wall. You've got our defense, which I know we haven't gotten to yet, but might as well segue over to that, who was a complete sieve today. Jacksonville owned them in every single way. The one thing you couldn't allow to happen today was their running game to get going. Because if it was on Trevor Lawrence's shoulders, he's shown you that he's going to give it up. I mean, he did already. I mean, he threw a pick today. And I guess that was the one call out with regard to somebody who had a good game. Sorry, apologies. So, yeah, ultimately, what I'm getting at here is that it feels like they showed up today with, I guess, the thought process that the Jaguars just wouldn't come out and put up a fight, which makes absolutely no sense because they were super desperate. So you needed to go in there, guns blazing, to try to put them down early, take their will, and then ride off into your bye week. Instead, you showed up like they were just going to not come out of the locker room and you were going to just automatically get a win. Again, got to go back to the defense. And what I was talking about was Dante Jackson with the pick. So great on him. I do want to call that out. Like the fact that he sat on that out route, on that speed route, jumped it, and drove on the ball. Fantastic. Best defensive play of the day. The problem is it was the only one that was made. And so in the running game, they were able to establish anything they wanted, but especially on the edges, again, that became another thing. But they got the Chargers to have to extend, on the defensive line and protect wide against the edges, and that just didn't work because they didn't set solid edges, and they were able to counter that and get their runs off on the inside too. So basically anything they wanted essentially all game long. And then in the passing game, that's when you start giving Trevor Lawrence confidence, because he had thrown that pick. You could tell he was dejected about it. And then he comes out in the second half, and I think he went like 6 for 6 or 7 for 7, however many straight, and they were just getting diced. But almost all of it was exclusively in the middle of the field, and there were no adjustments made. So if you can't get home rushing 4 and you're playing zone coverage, essentially there are going to be windows in that defense, and they were exploited all day long. And though he wasn't really the hero of the game because he didn't have to be, you didn't put him in a position to be the guy to where you could capitalize off of the mistakes that he would ultimately make. Because if you make him do it, like if you make him have to throw the ball 30 plus times, he's going to give you a few of them. And that just didn't happen today. Defense got completely wrecked. And it proves another point that the defense can't have a bad game. They can't. It's not possible. With the way that the offense is currently constructed, the defense has to show up and play well every week in order for this Chargers team to have any opportunities whatsoever, because it comes down to field position for the most part. And you might get some of these long drives like they had against the Steelers where they put up points, but that's going to be fewer and further in between. What has to be the constant with the way that the offensive line is constructed now is that the defense has to show up every single week, and they have to force turnovers and keep opponents out of the end zone and force 3s over 6s if you can't keep them off the board altogether. So all around crap kicking today, and there are really no heroes. It's unfortunate, but I mean, it's just kind of weak that it was.
Yeah. Salyer was not inactive today. Foster Sorrell was. But I think going into the bye, just going back to the offensive line, Bobby Hart should be back soon, and hopefully in 2 weeks. If he's got 2 weeks to rest up and he was close this week, at least you have an answer at right tackle, hopefully, which is not something when they signed Bobby Hart, not a thing I would be looking forward to him returning, but by far the best right tackle since all the injuries happened. But then you can probably start to figure out what's going on left tackle. But I don't know why Salyer isn't getting more run. He was the best tackle there 2 weeks ago. I don't know why he will not get another shot. It is what it is at this point. But maybe there's some kind of saving grace that Bobby Hart will be coming back and that offensive line will be fixed a little bit on one end at least. And then you can figure out of the, whoever you want to throw at left tackle, whoever the best is coming out of the bye will win that job. Because they've got quite a bit of ground to make up because they got to play the Chiefs again. They got to play the Broncos again. They're going to get the Eagles. The Cowboys are pretty hot. They're going to have the Texans and then I think the Raiders. So it's like it's a pretty tough sled from here on out. But hopefully they can collect themselves and come out of the bye, with a little bit more energy because what they did today. I mean, I don't even know if they ever woke up this morning. But defensively, I don't know. I'm not sure what Minter was really getting at today. It just felt like there was a whole hell of a lot more zone than I'm used to with this defense. The run game was absolutely awful. T.R. Tart had a really, really nice run stop, but I don't know that, he deserves a shout out there. But outside of that, the run game was terrible. They gave up 3 touchdowns on the ground. Then, the zone absolutely wasn't working today. The pass rushers were nowhere to be found between any of the new guys, Owe or Thule or Mack or Dupree is a body at this point. But there was no pass rush. And even when they tried to send extra, there wasn't much getting after it. And this Jaguars offensive line is not very good. So that's not a good sign. But it feels like a theme throughout the whole day anyway. It was being bad was contagious today in Jacksonville. I'm not sure why. But on top of, not having your run defense getting sliced up and then your zone being super soft today and then not getting after Trevor Lawrence, it just felt like when you run that soft zone, you're just going to let Lawrence do what he wanted. And if the run game's setting everything up and you're able to get like 6-7 yards a clip on first down, you're just leaving everything open and they just attack the middle of the field. They saw something they really, really liked in the middle of the field. And, even when they were trying to get off the field, you had like Tarheeb still get a PI call and then Elijah Molden get a PI call in the end zone. They end up scoring touchdowns on both of those. Everything today was off. There was nobody who really did their job today. And I don't know collectively how captains let that happen, but again, it just felt like it was contagious. They could not do anything right today, and they certainly paid for it.
So the overall problem here is that the Chargers are a very zone-heavy scheme. That is literally their defensive scheme. They run a bunch of cover 3, cover 2. They run some 6, even some 9. They'll mix in some man, but they don't want to play man if they don't have to because they don't necessarily have the best personnel for it. The problem is that if you're going to be this zone heavy, you have to get home with your pass rush. And there's a really easy way to discourage quarterbacks from maybe even or actually you want to force them to hold the ball maybe a tick longer to let your pass rush to get after them. Simulate press coverage. You can play cover 3 from a press position. I mean, I'm not saying that this is who the Chargers are, but literally the Seattle Seahawks did this for almost a decade. You can line up in cover 3 from almost press position as an outside cornerback on the boundary or to the field. You can even bring your safeties up a bit so that you force Trevor Lawrence to have to maybe look deep. And he hasn't had the best deep ball here recently, but even if he's going to work underneath, you're going to force him to fit balls in the tighter windows. And he made a couple of really nice throws today, but I'll take my chances making those windows smaller And then again, giving my defensive ends, my edge guys, an opportunity, maybe another half second to beat their defender or offensive lineman to run the hoop to get after him. But even then, there was no pressure anywhere, nothing on the interior, nothing from the edge. And he had free reign to do whatever he wanted all day long. And it's like you mentioned, I'm not sure what the game plan was today defensively, because I did see some attempts to pressure him with an extra defender. I did see Derwin on a couple of blitzes, but Jacksonville picked them up really, really well. And the problem is that when you don't get home with those blitzes, a good quarterback will find the zone that you vacated in the blitz and attack it. And that's exactly what he did. So he took what was given to him. So bravo to him for that. But let's not be mistaken. We didn't go against the world beater at QB today. And that was always the game plan. I thought, make him have to beat you. And you didn't. You made his day relatively easy.
Yeah.
The fact that the running game got whatever it wanted facilitated that. And for a team that played the run so well last week and has been pretty decent about it, like, you'd see teams get a nice run here and there, but for the most part, the Chargers were really solid against the run for the last few weeks since that Colts game. And getting Deshaun Hand back last week was a huge part of the reason they were able to kind of control the Steelers. Nobody did anything today. And that's scary, like you mentioned, because the Jaguars don't have a very, very good offensive line at all. So who's next? I mean, we got the Raiders after the bye. As much as we like to make fun of them, and I don't think the Chargers will lose to them, I don't know what to expect from this team from week to week, because you've got the most ridiculous extremes. On one end, you get last week, like I mentioned, against the Steelers, where they beat them in a way that I don't think anybody expected them to. And then the same thing happens, but on the opposite end of the spectrum in Jacksonville today. There's no consistency to where you feel like you know exactly what this team is. But then here's where you have to be honest with yourself. You can't circumvent a bad offensive line for an entire season. You can come up with really nice game plans like what they did last week, but that won't work against every team, because then they'll have film on you and they'll know how to attack it. What concerned me today was the fact that Greg Roman didn't care to use anything that he had last week today. He made it easier for the Jaguars. He did the one thing that you can't do in a situation where you've got no protection for your quarterback. Ask him to sit back in a pocket that's never going to be clean, survey and look past read 2 into read 3 when there's no protection in there in order for him to do it. And he almost got Herbert killed again today. And so I don't know, man. The outlook is really weird. This team's 7-4, and I know it sounds like gloom and doom, but we're just being realistic. What's the path forward? Because you can't fix the O-line. You're not getting anybody better. You just have the collection of guys that you have. You just have to figure out what that collection is with what you have and keep it in there consistently. And you have to commit to something. But what I can tell you is what they can't do is keep asking 10 to drop back behind that offensive line and look for guys on longer, slower developing routes. It's got to be all quick, and you've got to figure out some semblance of a running game. So hopefully when Marion Hampton comes back after the bye, that helps. I would imagine that it will. Hopefully Vidal is okay, and you can get a 1-2 combination of those guys and see what you can get going here going forward. But I'm telling you, G, I don't know. I'm really worried. I'm really, really worried, because I don't know how you fix this. And if the defense has games like this, then there's a real potential to not make the playoffs. It's very, very possible.
Yeah, I mean, and they've got a really hard schedule. It felt like it was tough at the beginning when you have all those games within your division. They come out 3-0. He's sitting pretty, and then they kind of start to falter a little bit in the softer part of their schedule. And then it was like the last leg is where they're going to, either make it or break it. And so, going the bye being 7-4, isn't the worst. They're still doing good, and we'll see how, what happens in Denver. I think it's 6-3 right now. Broncos are up, but to your point, I don't know that the team that showed up today in Jacksonville would beat the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't know. I don't know that team beats many teams in the NFL, the team that played today. And that's bad, but there is hope, obviously, with Hampton coming back. Hopefully that helps your running game, getting Bobby Hart. Hopefully he's that missing piece that kind of helps bring the line together a little bit. Maybe it was when he was in, but I got some quotes, from the presser today We got Jim Harbaugh, who said, we got beat every which way you could possibly be beat, and we're going to fly back to LA and get together and figure out what we're going to do about it. So obviously starting to take accountability. Do we read anything into that? I don't know. Justin Herbert said, I could have done a better job of stepping up in the pocket, getting the ball out quicker. That is very true. I have to play better, and it's not good enough for this team. He finished with a career low 81 passing yards today. Terrible. And then Khalil Mack said, I'm pissed. And then this is from Chris Rim, by the way. Khalil Mack said, I'm pissed. And then later added, I don't got no panic in me, man. I ain't got no, he spelled out BITCH in my blood. So yeah, just got to rally the troops and look at this S and stamp it and own it and just get ready for the next one. So nobody's making excuses. Everybody's trying to take accountability, but we will not see until after this bye. I don't care about any of this until they go out and play the Raiders and hopefully make them pay for the awfulness of today.
One person I'm not worried about is Khalil Mack. You know, he's going to show up every week. I know he's going to do his best to galvanize and rally the troops and get them to come out and play better. Typically, when he speaks about things like that, the next showing is generally better. But man, like you mentioned, when you start looking at some of the matchups down the line, you start talking about the gauntlet that they're going to be facing here in the stretch run of the season. This is where, of course, the players, the guys on the field are what make the difference. Like, you can draw up all the plays you want, but the guys on the field have to execute it. But I'm putting a lot on the coaching staff going forward, because you're going to have to earn every penny of your contract. Jesse Minter, Greg Roman, you two specifically. Jesse Minter has been the Chargers' darling for the last 2 years. Like, he's had some bumps in the road, some terrible games. I've seen some people compare him to Brandon Staley. No, let's not do that. But I understand that you're upset about today, so that's the direction you want to go. Immediately remind you got PTSD. I feel you. I totally understand that.
Yeah,
the truth of the matter is that he's going to have to get maybe a little bit more creative in his scheme, even if it's just the looks, not even the calls. Just add a wrinkle here and there, just from depth perspective. Like I talked about before, you can run your zone coverages. You can just do them from tighter formations. Don't give teams that much space to operate with, because the problem is if your pass rush isn't getting home, what you're going to have happen to you moving forward is the same thing that happened today. Fam, the Jacksonville Jaguars had none of their top wide receiving options on the field today.
I think they would have lost the Jackson Jaguars, let alone the Jacksonville Jaguars.
They could have actually put Jackson DeVille on there as wide receiver today, and he probably would have caught like $115 and a TD on him. I wouldn't have been shocked.
What about Jackson Mahomes? What do you think he's got?
Ooh, I'm gonna pass on that one because I don't want to get in trouble.
Sorry,
haven't seen or heard from that dude in a long time. That's a good thing, though.
Yeah.
Anyway,
good. I'm glad because he.
No, I'm right there with you. Just never need to see him or hear from him ever again, or the wife either. She can wherever they both are. Just do y'all's thing. Just don't be on TV or anything. So you can make your adjustments defensively to where you can give the quarterback a little bit more to look at from an eye candy perspective, to not make things so easy for him, and to help your defensive line a little bit. Like I said before, we're getting an extra tick or so to get after the QB. Greg Roman, the guy just doesn't know how not to, like, I know you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but that dog had some nice tricks last week. And for some reason, I guess he was like Dory from what's my movie? Nemo? Finding Nemo, with the short-term memory thing. Because dude couldn't recall anything he did last week. And you can't have that going forward, man. You can't just roll out what you historically have done and think is going to work because you had success with it in the past when you don't have the requisite pieces to pull it off. And he is so stubborn about that he will go away from something that works just to maybe, I guess, prove a point. No, dude, just do what works. Most of all, protect your franchise quarterback. That should be option number one. If your running game isn't working, you can't ask him to do things like he's got a clean pocket to operate from in the passing game. The ball still has to come out quick. Where were the quick passes today? I just don't understand where any of that went. And it avalanched on them quickly. As a whole, like I said, moving forward, I'm putting a lot of onus on the offensive and defensive coordinators. They've got to step up because you're going to have to circumvent some of these issues, and you have to be very, very creative in the way that you go about doing it. Otherwise, like I said before, those playoff hopes could start dwindling really quickly over the next 3 to 4 weeks. And I would rather not have to do a show with that, in front of us. I just want to avoid that if possible. This team can still actually make it into the playoffs, and I think they can perform decently, but all hands are going to have to be on deck.
Yeah. And they've got 3 division games coming up in the next 6.
That got us 6 games, yeah.
Yeah. So half their games are going to be in division, where you can really make up some ground here with some of these ugly losses, like against the Giants. Colts, we all feel like was understandable, but the Giants just felt like a huge letdown. And then this game here, you start to feel a little bit better if you can start getting some of those divisional wins. And that's something they're going to have to do here pretty soon. Is that, by the way, did you see the whole like flop thing from Bradley Bozeman today?
I did. I did. I think I reposted that on Twitter, as a matter of fact.
You did?
I think so.
What is going on with that man?
Just more clown work. Like, if it's not in play clown work, then post. Like, he's doing it all. But that's one of your captains, by the way. So yeah, that's what you want to see on tape. I cannot wait until they go back in the meeting room and look like, dude.
How you think you're gonna get a foul call? Like, you're not gonna go to the free throw, bro. Like, that's not gonna. This is football.
But when you flop, you kind of have to do it after the contact's made. There can't be like a 2-second, 3-second delay before you do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if he's trying to be cute or funny, but it was neither. It was crazy. It was like a good couple seconds after the initial like one-armed kind of push to the shoulder. Not even like a good like chest push. It was like nothing.
The guy that made contact was looking at him like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm gonna find the video.
You're not getting that. And so I don't know. I got something in my throat.
It's okay. I got it. Hold on. While let's watch. Here's what we're referring to. All right. Obviously Bozeman here. So what do we, and he kind of almost swung on him too a little bit. Like, what is this? I can't, I could watch that on loop forever. What are they doing?
I mean, you're not winning any awards on the field, and you definitely ain't winning any as an actor, dude. It's time to figure something else out.
Man, that was do something.
In the way that, this is, I don't even watch or really look at PFF grades, but they always seem to pop up on my timeline whenever I go look on the Bird app. So always funny to see that there are some instances where they grade him mostly terribly, but then there'll be some games where like they think he played very well. I'm curious to see what the quote unquote grades for this performance were, because outside of he and Mekhi Becton, who, oh my God, Mekhi, we're going to talk about you later. I might have to do it at a different time because I don't want to take this. I don't want this to take all day. I'll give him a mention here in a second, but Bradley Bozeman is, I've never seen an offensive lineman, someone who gets paid millions of dollars to do this, lose instantly as often as he does. I mean, instantly, right off the snap of the ball. He has zero athleticism. If you put anyone in front of him that has any foot quickness whatsoever, he's going to whiff. Like, he might be able to neutralize a bull rush or something along those lines, but if you give him someone that can get space in between he and whoever that is, and they can, I mean, I'm not even talking about like counter moves. There's no need to counter. Like, whatever your first move is going to work. And he very rarely gets hands on the defensive lineman first. It's disgusting. I don't know what Jim Harbaugh sees in this dude every single day to where they're like, yeah, this is our best option. There's nobody else on this roster that could do any better than that. It's terrible. But Mekhi Becton, dude, I gave you props for finishing an entire game last week. That's where the bar was. Okay. That was the bar. But today, I watched you get wrecked in a way that I've not seen a man of your size have happened to. I can't remember exactly what play it was. It was a running play. I don't remember when it was. I just recall seeing him get walked back into the backfield, almost into the running back. And then the person, of course, who destroys him on the play makes the play. And I'm looking, I'm like, dude, you're 6'7". You're bigger than Joe Alt. How is that possible? And football is a leverage game. I totally understand. And generally, quote unquote, low man wins, but there's no excuse for someone of your size to be this soft. And it's really, really frustrating. So for the guys that are out there that are still competing and able to play, thankful that you're around, because I guess technically it could be worse. I can't imagine how much worse it could be. But some of these dudes that they've invested in, that they're trusting every single week, are out there and being complete liabilities. And the fact that there's no real development happening here, again, points to, I call him the devil, but Mr. Devlin, Mike Devlin, you got to go after this season, man. It's got to happen. Because the offensive lineman, I get that you're missing your two best players on the offensive line. Totally understand that. But the fact that none of these dudes behind are getting any better, it just speaks to the level of coaching, in my opinion. So that's really, I guess, all I have to say about it. It's just it's depressing. It's just so depressing.
Yeah. But okay, so what is the takeaway is that there could be help on the way if Bobby Hart and Hampton can improve the run game and or the offensive line, then there's some kind of hope here. But and obviously all these players are taking accountability. I don't care about all that. It's just words to me at the moment. But they need to get right game, and none better than to play the Raiders and after the bye, get everybody healthy, get right, and then get ready to go to work after that. Because that feels like the easy one.
I just want to ask, and you don't have to take my advice, Andre James, but I'm just saying, you might want to find somebody to pull a Nancy Kerrigan on Bradley Bozeman or something along those lines. Anything that'll help get you in the game, because at this point, it's going to take something extreme. And I don't care what happens. I mean, I don't want anything debilitating to happen to the man per se. I just need him to not be in the rotation anymore. Like, don't be a part of the lineup. I don't need you on the offensive line anymore. And I'm tired of us having to deal with this every single week. Your center cannot be this bad. So, Andre, I'm not saying you need to do it, but you have the funds to probably make it happen. I know I'm saying this out loud, so I could maybe be held liable.
Not a thing to
so
say
if something happens, I'm saying the quiet thing out loud. I don't care anymore. I'm desperate. Just somebody figure something out and get this man off the field. It's got to stop.
Yeah. Yeah, that whole interior can go. You know what? Now that I think about it, didn't Salyer come in for Becton at some point?
Today?
I thought Becton went out. Yeah. I'm pretty sure Salyer played today. Yeah.
I must have missed that.
All right. Is there anything else without like going down a Nancy Kerrigan, Tanya Harding route? Anything else you want to add before we get out of here?
This next 2 weeks is going to suck. But just find collectively, I just need the coaching staff to get together and come up with a plan that they can utilize to execute more than one. Sorry, not a plan, because you're going into every game with a plan. Find a way to have a plan B, because you can't consistently show up every week thinking the first plan is going to work, have that not, and then just tank the rest of the game like what happened today. So,
Roman did so good last week with that. Plan A did not work, and plan B was, hey, let's get the ball out of Herbert's hands faster, and maybe that'll open up the passing game and slow down the pass rush, and it absolutely worked. So
I don't know, man. Again, asking Greg Roman to change his stripes at this point consistently feels like just exercise in futility. So, I mean, yes. But all we can hope for is that they can regroup, come out, and dominate a Raiders team that they have or should have no business losing to or allowing to be competitive in a game against them, and get back on the winning path, because you absolutely have to pull it together, because you can't have any more games like today. That can't happen again. Nothing, any semblance close to what happened today. Or you might as well just go ahead and get ready for the offseason to enjoy it. You know, what is it, Cancun, wherever y'all go kick it postseason. Take your trips, get your family stuff in order to be able to go hang out with your kids and whatnot, because that time's coming if you put up another stinker like today or anything relatively close to it. So you got to treat every game like the playoffs moving forward.
So here's a question from Jay, Who do you want to lose today, AC or Denver? Right now, it's 6-3 Denver in Denver. There's 7 minutes and 44 seconds in the left in the second quarter, so still very early.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you want to lose?
I feel so weird about this now because before today's loss, like my thing was ultimately they're kind of going to cannibalize each other one way or the other. Like if the Broncos beat the Chiefs, then they fall further back, and nothing would be funnier to me than the Chiefs missing the playoffs. And me thinking that I would rather go up against the Broncos if we're talking about winning the division potentially, who I want to see there. Now I kind of feel like I want the Broncos to lose just to bring them back to the pack a little bit after what the Chargers did today. But I can't see myself rooting for the Chiefs, man. Like,
Nah.
I just can't do it. Like, it's not in me. So, yeah.
That's hard. I think, it's kind of like a pick your poison type of scenario. But it does feel like I'm okay with the Broncos still winning. They don't scare me at all. I think they've kind of coasted by, and they are like they're definitely not contenders. They feel like they're pretenders, and I would be more inclined to play a Broncos team even in Denver than Kansas City at home for the Chargers. So I don't think you could ever root for Patrick Mahomes. So I'm totally okay with Denver pulling this one out, and I kind of want them to. Even though with a Denver loss, the Chargers would then become one game closer, and if they won the head-to-head and they kept winning and they finished with the same record, they'd be top the division.
Yeah, again, which is why I'm like in between a rock and a hard place because you lost the game that you had no business losing today.
I know.
It kind of changes the outlook of all of it because, like you said, I can understand still wanting Denver to win today for sure. But again, I don't know, man. Like the Chargers need a lot of dominoes to fall their way after today. I mean, like they don't technically, if they continue, they lost today. If they get back into their winning ways, they can still control their destiny with regard to getting into a playoff, getting a playoff berth. But when you're talking about winning the actual division, you're making it a lot more difficult than what I feel like it needs to be with some of these losses that you have absolutely no business having on your record.
Yeah.
But this is the Charger way, man. Nothing comes easy. I just expected more from a Jim Harbaugh team. That's all. So it's very disappointing. And I don't know. Like I'm sitting here doing the same thing you're doing, watching this game and wanting both teams to lose. And unfortunately, that's not the way that this works out. Maybe it can end in a tie somehow.
No, I was going to say they could tie. But
can we cross our fingers for that? That's the next closest thing.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that helped. Well, it doesn't matter. It just is what it is. I think Chargers got to basically go back and sweep the division again now, hopefully, which is possible, but we will see. Not with the way they play. Yeah, that's true. All right. That's it for us. I am good. I think you good, Craig?
Yeah. Great.
Cool. All right. Well, no podcast next week, obviously, because of the bye, but we will see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Salute.